we're here on the south side of the Avon and Heathcote estuary to talk about sea level rise impacts for this part of the city. Currently, with existing sea level, storm events may put water over the causeway occasionally, something like maybe once every 10 years. But with sea level rise, that's going to happen much more frequently. So, for example, in 50 years, when sea level is projected to rise somewhere between 25 to 50 centimetres, that inundation of the causeway could occur on an annual basis. And if we look forward 100 years, when sea level rise is projected to be between 50 centimetres up to 1.4 metres, at that upper end, we could have our monthly high tides going across the causeway. So inundation and flooding for access is going to be an increasing issue for these coastal settlements. Ferrymead is likely to experience that more frequent flooding, possibly around that 30 to 50 year time period when we have those storm events. And that tidal water also goes up the lower parts of the Heathcote. So the suburbs in the lower Heathcote can be expected to be affected by sea level rise progressively as we go through time. There is an outlet from McCormick's Bay which discharges around 50% of the current tidal range. But with sea level rise, the efficiency of that outfall will go down. And so that amount of discharge will reduce and we'll have more ponding sitting in McCormick's Bay for much longer of each tide. So if we go forward 100 years, when sea level rise could be up to 1.4 metres higher than it is at present, we'll have very little drainage from McCormick's Bay. Most of the causeway is protected with large infrastructure, and that protection will remain, it will work, but the increasing water levels brings it under greater pressure. So the risk of failure of that and erosion of that in storm events goes up. And if that occurs, we could have up to 10 metres of erosion anywhere along this protected shoreline. And if we went over to a 100-year time frame, that movement of the shoreline could be 20 odd metres. But if we look at the big infrastructure at Bromley with the sewage ponds, the stop banks that are built there are much higher than at the predicted sea levels. So luckily our sewage ponds and sewage treatment works for the future are well protected for sea level rise. On this part of the Christchurch coast, we also have some open sand beaches, such as here at Taylors Mistake. Now we know in this type of beach, when we have storm events with elevated sea level and large waves, that where we're standing on the edge of the dunes erodes. And if we have very extreme storms, that erosion may be up to around 10 metres, and then it grows back. But what our models show us with sea level rise, that return or growth back is going to be reduced, and the erosion is going to accumulate. So in our 30 years of sea level rise, where we're standing at the front of the dunes, could be somewhere around 15 to 30 metres further inland. And over the 50 years, this position of the beach may be up to 50 metres further landward than we are now. Over that 100-year rise, this dune edge could be somewhere between 70 to 90 metres further inland around the edges of the current car park. The type of coastline in this part of the city is the basalt base and loess soft sediment cliffs behind. And that is the sort of coastline that we see from Scarborough around to Taylors Mistake and from Taylors Mistake out to Godley Head. Now we're standing around the high tide on the volcanic rock platform, and so you see that the waves, when we get sea levels just above high tide, can attack that soft cliff sediment and causing it to undermine, leading to cliff erosion. So when sea level rises, over the next 100 years, that process is going to become more and more frequent. And that cliff instability is going to become greater. So our modelling suggests that the amount of retreat we might have at the top of the cliff over that 100-year period could be around 20 odd metres.